So welcome, Arville. We have Arville Thompson here today talking about the fire department, some of the history. Arville, you were a member of the Detroit Lakes Fire Department for many, many years. What years?
Well, I joined in 1961 until 86.
Wow.
And I was fire chief the last 10 years. And then before that, assistant chief for 4 years. But we had a lot of fires.
Yeah. How many men do you think you served with in that time? How many different guys?
Oh.
Any guesses?
Well, like that picture there, I think there's 26 on there.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know, 40, 50 probably.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy. I know you served with my grandpa for a while. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
To hear a different, when we've talked about those stories, to hear a different side of him. So, well, tell us a little bit about some of the history. I know you have lots of notes.
What I'm going to talk about, start with, is mutual aid, which when I first started, you got to realize, you notice the pictures on these old trucks. When I joined, we just bought a new Ford pumper, utility truck. It was in 1961. And that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, not for me, but all these firemen I sure were on. I'm talking about mutual aid to start with. The Detroit Lakes Fire Department has the city, which right now is, I think, only 8,800 people. And we have surrounding townships, so we always figured we were serving from 10 to 12,000 people. Well, we have contracts with Lakeview Township, Erie Township, and Detroit Township. We service those, and we have a contract with them. So that ups our per call.
Sure.
And we maintain the trucks and stuff, and then some of the pay, they help us. And one thing I was kind of proud of is when I joined the fire department, all these guys down here were all they're retired now, but the pay was $15 a month.
Wow.
Retirement. And we got together with some other people, and me and another fireman made 2 different trips to St. Paul to work with a guy down there, shotgun behind us, and we lobbied for 2 different times to change the pay, because what happened was they weren't putting money into the Relief Association. And what happened was the state had it set up that anybody that has fire insurance for the city and the 3 townships, we would get a percentage of that. I think it's 10%. And that would accumulate, and end of the year you apply for that, and they would send us that money. Well, now that's accumulated quite a lot.
Sure.
So, and what we did was lobby to have that insurance money go to the Relief Association, because many fire departments around here didn't have retirement or relief association. And our relief association was funded, started a long time before that, but $15 a month was our old firemen. They'd come once, that meeting, first meeting of the month, they'd get their $15 check. Then afterwards they played cards in the back room. But that was their night out. Then gradually things went up, and it started to go up, increase each year. And now it's getting to be quite substantial retirement, but important to have that. I don't know when it'll stop, but I don't cover that. I don't even know what the payout is, but it's pretty good. But they get quite a lot of money now from the state. Can you figure all the insurance, and 10% goes right to the fire departments of that area, or whoever services that area. So we get 10% from the 3 townships plus the city of Detroit Lakes. And the mutual aid was, when it first started, it was reciprocal. We would help each other, and there was no payment for a while. And we had one chief a while back. I don't mention names, you know that.
Smart man.
Yeah. I'm married long enough to know better than that. Anyway, he started charging other departments. Well, and he retired, and we got back and got agreements going. So we have agreements, and there's pay. Now, a lot of insurance companies have a fire call on their insurance, whether they're rural or not, so that's a whole different ballgame now, but they get a lot of money out of that, which is good, because it's a share. But some of the mutual aid calls, for an example, I talk about was we had like a lot of these small towns, you know, they have a big elevator and stuff, but they have some little fire truck that they can put out grass fires with. And we had some bigger stuff, so I went with a crew to Holly when the elevator burned. Of course, when the elevator burns, it's a kind of surround and drown.
Yeah.
You don't put those out, you just kind of maintain everything. We would help them, and we went to Callaway many times. I remember we were for their we had a cafe fire there, and then of course, after I retired here not too long ago, they had that gas truck hit by the train, which got to be quite a deal,
Yeah.
which I don't know much about. But one of the first deaths I was involved in, we helped Frazee in a rural house where they lost some kids, which is tough. And as I got on, I got to be the person to go and help with that, because nowadays you got more sophisticated ambulance services and stuff like that.
Sure.
And we were first aid people, but then what happened when the state trooper come out, Jack Murray, that's the name I can give out, see. Bless Jack, great guy. He came out and taught us advanced first aid, which was the beginning of EMT. And we all took that, and so we had to have that for, you know. Then we went into recovery of drum. They called us the rescue squad, but we were the dive team, recovery team. Because when we got to, there was no rescue, it was recovery. And I think in the years when I was on, I went to about over 20 drownings.
Wow.
And we pushed, in fact, we went down to St. Paul and lobbied for life jackets. And the fire departments, police departments and stuff were the ones pushing hardest for life jackets. And even though I was a diver, I always go out, even now, with a life jacket on. I don't care what it is. Because I mean, you can buy the inflatable ones like we had, and you pull a cord and it'll blow up. But life jacket is the cheapest thing you can buy. And I drive by and see these guys fishing out there, like out by the Holiday Inn. And I recovered 2 people that drowned out there, that kind of fishing. And you know, makes you mad. Now, if the boat patrol is around and goes out, they catch one of that, they will ticket them, and they should.
Yeah.
It's a shame when you got to protect people against themselves. But you can get nowadays life jackets that are fit smaller and comfortable.
Right.
But if you ever fall out of a boat or fall off a pontoon and need it, and you never know, you bump your head or something, you can be a good swimmer, you still will find you on the bottom.
Yeah.
But that's another story. We did mutual aid. I was to do 2 different mutual aid calls to Monoman. One was the Burton S. Chevrolet garage, which completely burned down, but we were there with 2 trucks and helped them. And then also, the next time, a couple of years after that, 3 years, the Red Apple Cafe, which was a big cafe in town, burned down. And that was, you know, foundation builder. And the guy that owned that, he rebuilt it to a nicer, and which is that the Red Apple's still there. He came to Detroit Lakes here and bought an old house on Detroit Lake and started a fireside supper club. So it worked out. One of the big fires we helped Morehead with was they had a big department store there, Waterman's, and the owner torched it. And it also took out the Silver Moon Cafe and Bar, which was very popular. And we were up there and helped them mop up. But he was caught and sent away for a while. And then we also had twice, I went to 2 different elevator fires at Perham. The kind of funny part about that was we were across the, if you know where the elevator in Perham is, we were across the tracks. And we had to get permission from the railroad to dig a little channel under the track so we could get our hose in.
Yeah.
We were pumping with a 2.5-inch line. And the funniest story about that was, it was 2 or 3 years later, we went back to the elevator that had been rebuilt, burnt. The hole was still there.
Nobody filled it in.
But we've helped a lot in Frazee and Audubon, Lake Park, I think, Benelman. We were to Moorhead once, so we do out.
Is there a fire in any of those communities that really stands out because it was so big, or because there was...
The Waterman fire, and the Waterman's department store covered, that and the Silver Moon covered over half a block. And I mean, it was gutted pretty bad. But it was all tear down, you know. I'm trying to think of some other, one, DNR, you know, kind of funny. We used to call it the DNR a lot because they'd have controlled burns. And I don't know why it was, but it didn't have the equipment and know-how, but we used to respond to a lot of grass fires that got out of control. Now they actually do some of those, but they hire people to burn them. No. They had a fire that we went to help with up 34 North on some refuge land, and it was a swamp fire. And they went in there, and we couldn't put it out. It was so big as it was a peat fire. The fire burned and got to be peat. So what they did was they went out and they pulled these. They had a lot of guys out here. They were building a bunch of digging wells for the big potato farms around here, and they went out and didn't confiscate. They said, "Come with us." So they had to follow them. They dug great big 6-inch wells all around that thing. And then they got a great big pump run by a tractor, PTO, and they pumped 24 hours a day till they pumped enough water into that swamp that it flooded. We had a fire one time at the east side of Highland Lake, and way down on the end is kind of a hunting area and a point, and the guy went and there was a little shack there, a bachelor lived there, and we got called to that fire. Well, when we got there, the cabin was gone, but we couldn't put out the fire. You know, it was peat, and we did the best we can, and then we got around it and let it burn. And about 2 weeks later, the lake had burnt back far enough that the lake flooded. So we made a little duck pond. Let's see. Oh, then one time we had mutual aid to Ponsford. Now it's out of our area. Ponsford had a contract with Park Rapids, but we were called by the guy at the school because you had the Indian school, and then you had the township, and you had a city, so they were all fighting who was going to put this house fire out. Well, it was smoldering in the attic. And so our mayor called, so he said, "You better clear with Park Rapids, see if you'll go." I called Park Rapids chief, I knew real well, and he says, "Well, we won't go out there because they owe us 3 fire calls and haven't paid us." So I called Ken Freeman back, and I said, "Well, you go and see what you can do." And we actually, after we got there 2.5 hours after the call came in, and we saved the house. What it was, they had this paper insulation in the attic, and it was smoldering, so a lot of smoke. So we had a fireman get up there, a smaller fireman get up there, and he handed out cleaned all the insulation, and the small house was saved, which was strange. But and then we had a lot of our training when they started doing some contracting in town, building new homes. We'd go out and we'd set it all up, and we would burn the houses down for training. And a lot of time we'd have a state instructor come in, sometimes 2 or 3, and they get air pack, good training. And we'd light a fire in them, and the guys would go and put them out, just having. After we did that 3 or 4 times, then we'd burn it down. Well, then how do I put this? Pollution control came along. Oh, for pollution control. Oh, lovely guys. Anyway, what happened was they finally told us, well, you can't burn these houses for practice anymore. Too much pollution. So then we met with them later and said, well, what can we do? Well, if it has any asbestos or tar shingles, that you got to remove that. Has any kind of siding that isn't wooden, you can remove that and they burn out. It finally got so difficult that we'd hire somebody to go out and unroof the house and do all that stuff, and just got to be a pain. So
Yeah.
we stopped doing that. And then they have a lot of training in fire schools, regional fire schools. But that's a little part of that. I'll get away from that now. But we helped everybody else, and a lot of people helped us. For example, when we all talk about the home school fire, we had Thompson, there was about 10 or 12 departments, because that was a big fire.
Yeah.
That was another one where you surround and drowned. Couldn't put that out. But anyway, I'll start with the fires in DL. One of the first ones is the Black Lake Fire, the gas station, which is now, I think, right north, on north of Washington Avenue. There used to be 4 stations there, and this was the station in the corner. And it was, after this fire, it was an arson, put it out. They sold out, and Don Wirtz had a cafe there. Now I think it's a chiropractor's office, remodeled.
Okay.
That wasn't really a big one, but it was, Then we got a fire call to Erickson Skell Gas, which is just about where the newspaper office was, downtown. Mm-hmm. And Chuck Erickson owned that, and they had an office there, and he had LP gas, delivery tanks, and all that stuff. And you could come in by the back, and what happened, the kids from the north side broke in there to do some theft, and he had a snowmobile he'd pulled in to do some work on it. They figured, boy, this will burn well. So when we got there, we thought we really had a big fire. Well, the crew that went in knocked it down right away, and all it was the snowmobile, gas tank burning. So.
Sure.
But that's one of them nuisance calls. Then down the road a little ways, there was Gordy's Cafe. Don Wirtz bought that, and in the basement, he had a furniture refinishing where he had these tanks where he'd had this solution, he'd put a chair and stuff in.
Like a
well,
dipping
him and his
tank?
buddies would sit around and have coffee and all with VS, and Leitris was running the station. They'd taken over the cafe upstairs, and he had his cleaning thing, and he would clean all the paint off and clean them real good, and people would pick them up and paint them. Refinishing deal. Well, what happened was, they had some old couches and chairs down there. And if you knew Don Wirtz, he was a character. Anyway, the couch caught fire. They were eating, coming down. We went in the back way and we threw everything out. It wasn't a major loss of the building, but after the fire, I was doing the work. Right I said, Donnie, get us done, we got to fill out this form. And we're filling it out, and I said, well, here, how'd this start? And Don's like this, he said, would you believe a match? I said, yeah, I would. Well, they set this, and we found the ashtray. It was sitting like this, and they tipped down between the seats and caught fire. And we go from there to the Colonial Hotel fire, which there was a death on that, because part of that was right next to the tracks where now the highway goes through. Mm-hmm. See, Detroit Lakes, when I was a kid, I helped my dad on the ice, and he had delivery trucks delivered ice. There was no refrigeration, so they had one guy that delivered ice just on Washington Avenue to the lake, and 25-pound cakes. Well, all them burnt down, whole thing was burnt. And the Colonial, they had over top, they had apartments. A fellow passed away there. That was before my time, so. Then we go from there to the Bennell's Cafe. Remember Bennell's?
I don't know if I remember. Where was it located?
Well, right across from, be a second, let's see, it was West Furniture in the corner, then it was F.W. Woolworth, then it was Bennell's. Right across from Bug Hardware.
Okay.
Now it's a mall. Anyway, we got a call there, and that was an accidental fire, and they were real busy. They had the The front part was all, he sold guns and he had big counters where they had sold a lot of cigars. They had humidifier, big ones. Then they had booths back there. And then they had a pool hall upstairs, the half of the building, and then downstairs the bowling alley.
Wow.
And I think they had, I want to say they had three lanes down there, I think. I used to set pins there when I was in high school. We got 15 cents a line. Well, anyway, I was living at Anna Legion Road. I got the call, and when I come up Washington Avenue, I could see the top part of the building, the stack exhaust. The fire was shooting straight out of that. So I figured, well, this looks like a lost cause. What had happened was, you had a big cafe in the back, and they served a lot of people, and real good food. And the guy that came in the morning, 6 o'clock, so what they would do, they'd drain the grease, let it drain night before, and they'd dump it out. And then the guy came in 6 in the morning, they had this hard grease, I don't know what to call it. They would put it in this fryer, and he'd turn it on, leave it on for a few seconds, shut it off. Well, the guy that I knew wasn't, he was a good guy, but he wasn't the sharpest cat in town. He put a whole bunch of that stuff over the deal and turned around and walked up and was getting the till ready.
Oh, jeez.
What happened was he forgot to go and shut it off, and that ignited. Now, they had an ANSEL system, which is a fire prevention system over the deal, and that had gone off only a month before that. And they'd cleaned it all up, and the guy from ANSEL came in and recharged it. Well, he's the one that made the mistake. Well, what happened was, when this took off, the grease was hot and going so bad, it went up that stack and upstairs, and I mean, we saved the main floor and the bowling alley and all that stuff. But we didn't. You could look up and see the start. The whole building is gone. But it was really a place that a lot of people went to on Washington Avenue.
So was the Greystone Hotel also still serving food at the same time that was operating?
Yeah, earlier.
Okay.
By this time, when they had the fire there, Greystone had closed.
Right.
Cafe. See, the guy that had a Greystone also owned Edgewater Beach Hotel.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
But they used to serve a lot of people there, and they had a whole dining room.
Yeah, that was my question, because that's kind of two big food establishments.
And that was
real
kind of
close to
funny
each
when
other.
you go in there. They had a nice dining room and everything else. We met, in fact, when I joined the JCs, they all had their meetings downstairs. Well, the funny part about this whole thing was, you go to the back and you get in there and eat and say, well, where are they cooking this stuff? The kitchen was downstairs. The waitress had to go downstairs and little cement, hardly walk in there. Mm-hmm. They'd have to take the orders down, leave them. Then when they're ready, they have to go back down and bring them up. So,
they got lots of steps in.
Oh yeah, it was quite a deal. But where was I here now?
So we're talking about Bunnell's.
Bunnell's. And we got there and we lost the pool tables fell into the basement, but they went to our main floor. I mean, we saved the booths and all that stuff and put the fire out, but the guns and stuff were seared, and they never rebuilt it. The bowling alley downstairs was water damaged, but not real hurt, and it was just too much money to rebuild it.
Yeah.
But they went to court, and a good friend of mine was the attorney. He come and asked me what I thought about that, and I said, well, the guy says the ANSEL system discharged on, didn't put it all out. And I said, they must have put it in wrong, because I went in and confiscated the entire ANSEL system. And the ANSEL system was, if you had a fire, this lead thing would break, and all these cables would let loose. Shut the gas off, it'd shut off, turn on the dry chemical extinguisher. Well, I thought it kind of funny when it was all done. I seen the big pile of garbage behind the counter, and the big tank was laying there, and all this powder was around it. Mm-hmm. Well, you can tell it discharged after the fire. So I reported that it malfunctioned. Well, then they got a big court case about that, and ANSEL wasn't going to pay, and they had $1 million attorney out of the cities come in, and our local guy here talked to me, and I said, well, I'll just testify to what it was. I've got the system. And what happened was, when the guy came to put the new tank in, he asked the people, he said, well, how could you, because it shuts, when that goes off, a cable shuts the gas off, everything. He said, how'd you get that gas on? He said, I just turned it. Well, the cable was hooked, he looks at it. And what happened when he put the other tank in, there was a junction box where all these cables come in, and when he took it apart, the cable was over top of one, like this. So Swanee was pulling on, I'm not supposed to mention names, darn it. You don't know him anyway, he's long gone. Anyway, he went over and pulled the control. And he kept pulling and pulling and pulling it. He pulled it so darn hard, he broke the cable. That's what clinched it.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. And anyway, Ansel's insurance company had to pay him off for the whole, the people that owned the building and the hotel and everything were a group of attorneys, so they all got their money, you see. But we went to court about it, and I showed this guy. And what I did was, I took all the materials, put it on 2 sheets of plywood, mounted them just the way they were, and hid them in my garage. And over a matter of a year, they had 5 different people come and want to look at this system. And I'd let them look, but I wouldn't let them touch. Well, they won the case anyway, but they were the case for the Ansel system. If it would have worked that time, the Vanels is still, well, been gone now, but still would have been here. That's one of them things that happened. And then we get to the Lindrud fire, which was an arson. I was coming back from Duluth at the time when I'd hit. And I got here, it was burning real good. But the Lindrud fire was an arson. We proved that. And when the fire was all over, it used to be Schaefer's in the corner, then it was Diamonds, it used to be Amer's, Diamonds, then it used to be CB Goss, 5 and Dime, and then Lindrud's. Well, Lindrud brought out CB Goss, so he had both buildings, big buildings, and downstairs the cement wall went through. Well, the 2 guys that broke in the back and torched this place, they lived in an apartment complex over by the sheriff's office. And the sheriff's office figured when they found all the stuff over there, caught the one guy, because I found the other guy in the basement and he didn't get out. But what caused it, them not getting out, was they'd cut a hole to walk between the 2 basements. Well, they came in the back, came over and lit the fire in here, took all the stuff out. They had the mom apartment over here where they went. They had buckets full of quarters, and they had all kinds of stuff from the hardware store. I think it was they were hired, but they wouldn't go after that. But anyway, when the fire was all out, and the one part all collapsed into the basement, and the other end, we saved the main floor, mostly, kind of collapsed. So it was full, we had to pump it out. So we sent all the guys back to the fire hall, and I left one guy there to pump it out. And when we got down, it had collapsed this way, so it was like a V-shaped deal. A building in the middle goes, you go in, with fire underneath. So I went down underneath. I wouldn't let the guys go in and check to make sure it was safe for them to be in there. So I was walking along the thing, and the mannequins were along the wall. I had to push them out of the way, and this one mannequin I grabbed was soft. That's where I found this guy under the water.
And was he gone? Did he die in the fire? Yeah.
But he didn't get burned at all because he was buried in the water. But what he did was they got mixed up, and he was back where I found him, because the highway patrolman spotted this fire right away, and he was standing on top of the deal, and the stairs come down, and if he came up to the stairs, he couldn't go out because the patrolman was standing there, by that time policeman. Well, he must have went back to try to find to get out. There's no way to get out, so he was trapped back there. But that's one of those things. But this, his dad owned a lumber company or something in War Road, and these 2 guys were going to school, and they were late teens, early 20s. And of course, the other guy had to go to the calaboose.
Well, thank you, Arville. We'll have you back again. We always enjoy talking with you.
All right.